Reverend, you were in Minneapolis yesterday. What were people telling you?
People are angry. They are frustrated because this is not the first police killing that they've seen there and around the country. Stephanie, I brought with me to Minneapolis the mother of Eric Garner, who in 2014 was killed by a New York City policeman and holding him in a chokehold, who said, "I can't breathe." And I wanted to bring her because, one, she could identify with the pain. She and I spoke with the family, and she could communicate in a way that they would understand how all of a sudden you're in the middle of all of this. So when we got to Minneapolis and went to the scene where it happened and talked to hundreds of people, all I could hear was the anger and frustration of why they will not arrest the policeman. The tape is more than enough to establish probable cause. You do not need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt at this stage. All you need is probable cause to make an arrest, and there is no reason why these 4 policemen should not have been arrested by now. And for the prosecutor to come out yesterday afternoon and say in the press conference that there may be things on the tape that does not establish a crime, even though he cleans it up later, it only confirms the fears and the doubts of the people there in the community, which is why when I spoke with the governor yesterday, I suggested that he appoint the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, to investigate the case, because I don't know that the community or the nation can trust this prosecutor.
What did the governor say to that?
He said that at this point they were going to keep things where they were and that he heard my plea in that, but we'll see where it goes. But I think that the fact that these are continual things, when we look at the uprising, when we look at the violence, and I agree with the mayor, everybody there is not a protester. Some of them could be from just taking the advantage of it. Others, we're hearing of some anarchist groups. But there are a lot of people angry and a lot of people rebelling that rebel different ways. We never see this, Stephanie, unless it's a police matter. If it's Watts in the 60s, if it's South Central riots in the or uprisings in the 90s, if it's Ferguson in the 2000s, it's always police matters. It's when people lose faith and confidence in the protection arm of their city, that's when you see them go to the streets. It's not economic issues. It's not other issues. It's always police matters that spark this, because that's when it becomes personal, that society is not protecting me, and those that should be protecting me have turned into the ones that are harming me.
Wes, to that very point, you say that you understand the calls for peace, but it's not that simple. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I share the calls for peace, and frankly, living in Baltimore and being from Baltimore, I've seen the firsthand implications, and we saw 5 years ago what happened after Freddie Gray, the long-term economic implications that we still continue to feel. But my question still is that while we are calling for this sense of tranquility and a status quo, where are our cries supposed to go when we still don't have a measure of justice? As Reverend Al was saying, when we have had more reporters arrested at this point than police officers, than police officers who were actually involved in the thing that actually sparked this inside of the first place. And so it's important for people to understand that while we can call for a relative measure of peace, if we are not actually able to focus on the idea of systems change, if we're not able to understand the fact that race continues to show itself in every single way in our society, the way we saw it with Mr. Floyd and the way that he was policed, the way that you had a person who was in handcuffs, laying on his stomach, calling for his deceased mother, and still the officers did not see any form of humanity in him at that moment. In the way that people are being asked to live, in the way the conditions we're asking people to exist in. There's a Nigerian proverb that comes back to me, and it's this idea that a child who does not feel the warmth of a village will burn the village in order to feel the warmth of the fire. And we have a situation right now in this country. We have still yet to deal with these long-term systemic issues. We have yet to address the issue of race in our society and the fact that not all neighborhoods are policed differently. For many people, there's this tinge of horrific irony to hear calls for tranquility and status quo when justice has still not been delivered.
But to that Nigerian proverb, Reverend, we don't even know if it was that wronged child who burned the village. The narrative always jumps to blaming these protesters for burning and looting the buildings, but we don't know that it was them. How hard is it to get your head around all the chaos?
It is very hard, but those of us that have been in this for a while knows that this is always the case, because you have the protesters that are organized, that are very, very much committed toward getting justice. And then you have all kind of forces that come in for other agendas. And then you have those that are just naturally angry and will do reckless things. But what we do know is that the government's supposed to be organized. The breakdown started. The first act of violence, Stephanie, was the knee on the neck of this young man, Floyd. That we do know. And the government has not done what it should with probable cause on that situation. As Wes said, you can arrest reporters and you can't arrest people that you see on tape that kills a man. Under no justification could you give to the public on why you kept your knee on a man's throat for 9 minutes. 9 minutes. While people are saying you're hurting him, he's dying. He's calling on his mother, who is dead. You're seeing how distraught he is. He's calling on his mama, who has died. He's saying, I can't breathe. If your training doesn't kick in, if your obligation as an officer doesn't kick in, do you have any humanitarian instinct in you? What are we looking at if we can allow that to go unanswered? That's where the rage is coming from.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.